So we were talking about Beast Wars as a podcast about two comedians rewatching the 1990s TV series Beast Wars Transformers. Although we are discussing a children's television show, the podcast itself is not intended for children.
Are you sure that I don't remind you of Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots?
It's not crazy.
Okay, I'll take that. At least it's not crazy. But I'm going to prove this to you. Here, I'm going to pull up a picture of Scott Weiland. Okay, so this is Scott Weiland.
Yeah.
This is Terrorsaur. Dead ringer, right?
You and I have different thoughts about what the term dead ringer means.
See, they even have the same hair. It's both red.
I would not call that red hair.
Oh, I would.
Is it possible, Phil, that this is a circumstance of all white people or white-faced robots look the same to you?
I'm not immune to that, but this is very specific. This will be my hill to die on. Terrorsaur was based on Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots.
All right, yeah, may well have been.
Do you remember any of the Stone Temple Pilots songs?
I'm sure I have heard some, but they may not have been identified to me at the time as having been Stone Temple Pilots songs.
Okay, I was going to attempt to sing a Stone Temple Pilots song as Terrorsaur, but I don't think anybody would get either half of that reference.
Yeah, plus, that's not pod safe. The Stone Temple Pilots lawyers, we after our suite, so we were talking about Beast Wars money.
Oh, yeah. All negative $75 of it.
It is true that so far this podcast has cost money to produce and not made any money. But advertisers, hit us up. beastwarstalk@gmail.com. We are talking about a show that existed exclusively to sell toys. So we are very much looking to sell out as well.
Oh, yeah. And you got to spend money to make money. Am I right?
Or sometimes you've got to juice yourself up with unstable energon to make money.
Yeah, just a hint of that sweet, sweet energon. Do you think it's meth? That's why you could take apart Megatron?
It was definitely evocative of drug use, for sure.
Yeah. And then he really quickly needed another hit.
Oh, yeah. Man, that mountain should have been charging him money. But anyway, since we're already getting into it, so we were talking about Beast Wars.
We were talking about Beast Wars. This time, episode, 6?
Season 1, episode 6, Power Surge. Hi, everybody. I'm Andy Hunter.
And I'm Phil Thomas.
Yeah, we are slowly becoming a less ramshackle podcast. In that today I will mention that this episode, Power Surge, was written by Larry DiTilio, one of the two head writers of the show. And I know in the past we've talked about stuff like, are the writers still finding this character's voice, or was this just written by some outside party? Why conjecture when we could actually read what's on screen and see who the writer was?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah, maybe we should have been tracking that. And I think that's important to note because Optimus goes against type a little bit in this episode.
Does he? I guess we'll have to see.
Yeah, let's get into it.
So the episode starts with another of the now typical kind of sweeping vista shots that the series often opens episodes with. We see a majestic bald eagle soaring along, and then Terrorsaur snatches it out of the air and eats it and proclaims, "It's good to be a Predacon." He says that either because he knows Maximals wouldn't hunt without need, or he knows that a primarily American audience is watching the show and they would consider it evil to eat a bald eagle. One of the two, I'm guessing.
That's actually a good point. That angle didn't occur to me, but it makes sense. The angle that occurred to me was that a bald eagle showing up is more evidence that they're in North America.
Well, yes, yeah. We've already seen Horseshoe Bend. Is that the name of the rock formation where the Axelon is? So, yes, but can't be Earth. There are 2 moons.
What?
We'll see. So, Terrorsaur finds a floating mountain full of energon. He says it's enough to power an army. When I saw this, Phil, I immediately thought that you and I need to buy a boring machine to dig up some of this energon, since it seems like every mountain in Beast Wars is just lousy with energon.
Well, We could buy a boring machine, or we could just use the edge of one of our toes to lightly scrape the ground. Oh, no, look at all that energy.
Yeah,
it's like everywhere.
Shoot some with a taser, because we've previously seen lightning just implode a mountain full of energon.
Yeah, it's so easy. You could see it coming before the missiles hit. You could go, the missiles!
I maintain it's just because Scorponok loves looking at missiles blow stuff up. It's like, yo, check that out. Those missiles are about to hit that mountain.
And that's the surprise, that Scorponok told you to look at something that was worth looking at.
Yeah. Speaking of Scorponok, we'll get to him later on in the episode, but he is once again able to use verbs in this episode. He's no longer speaking like a caveman, or cave bot, I guess we could say.
Can he use pronouns in this episode?
Yeah, I think he speaks just plain English.
Oh, because he usually speaks in the third person, right?
Sometimes. Waspinator always does, but Scorponok kind of goes back and forth.
Okay. So I guess he's prototypical Scorponok in this episode.
Yeah. So this mountain full of unstable energon supercharges Terrorsaur, and really in the span of a blink of an eye, he's like, oh, cool. Now I can go murder Megatron. It's just clearly that is just something that is always on his mind. He just needs the slightest excuse.
So is that true of all of the Predacons? If any of them were to achieve that level of power, they would immediately go challenge Megatron?
I don't think all of them. I mean, we did see in the first episode, Dinobot challenged Megatron because he thought he failed them as a leader. But in this episode, we do see Scorponok is loyal to Megatron. He could leave Megatron to die and trust his odds later on fighting Terrorsaur if he truly did crave command. But I think Scorponok is loyal to Megatron.
It does seem like the Predacons are more open to embracing management, whereas the Maximals are more like, man, doing all those one-on-ones every week and like filling out performance reviews and then like having to do all the hiring. And oh my God, that just seems like a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I can totally imagine Dinobot upon having joined the Maximal's leadership structure. By the time I am done all of my meetings, I have no time to do my actual Maximal work.
And then Rat Trap's like, man, there's so much management here. When am I going to be an individual contributor? Maybe I don't want to be rewarded with management. Maybe I want to be just better compensated for what I do well, which is, fucking with people.
Hey, then be like me. Keep your head down, do your job well, but some other guy will still be named second in command.
You're not fooling anyone. We know you're so invested in computers because you're looking at porn over there.
So we were talking about Beast Wars. Cheetor witnesses Terrorsaur getting boosted, and he takes off after him. Do you think when we see the various characters out, like Cheetor and Terrorsaur in this episode, they're both wandering around, do you tend to think they're on official patrol? Or just in general, when there's not a mission going on, it's just kind of like, go wherever you want, just make sure we sort of know where you are?
That's a good question. To give you a non-answer, I see it as a little bit of both. I think they're explorers, so they go out to try to learn more, but they're always on patrol at the same time.
Yeah, that makes sense, that there's an entire planet that they haven't yet charted. Basically, wherever they go, they'll get useful information.
Yeah, and they also have no choice. It's not like they get shore leave and they can go to like a bar where a bunch of other Maximals happen to be like drinking off duty.
Yeah, that's true. So when Terrorsaur reaches the Predacons, Megatron is showing off a new turret that can auto-target and shoot at Maximals. I did wonder, is this the Mega Cannon from the web, whose fate was left unresolved at the end of that episode? I don't really remember what it looked like in that episode, so it might look nothing like this, but
I'm sure the writers would have you believe that from a narrative arc perspective, even though like the Mega Cannon looks completely different than the technology, which is two lasers emerging out of the ground that were concealed to like shoot Maximals. But I would add that up for them.
Yeah. Terrorsaur totally wastes Megatron, blasts him apart. So Megatron's arms and legs come off. But unlike when Scorponok blasted Cheetor with a single missile, there isn't a big hole in Megatron's torso. And it's just, if Terrorsaur is by far the strongest now, I would have expected him to both duplicate and exceed Scorponok's previous output of damage, as opposed to just, all right, I guess he still effectively blasted Megatron. Just once again, missiles and lasers do different things in the show.
The first thing that occurred to me there was like just how weird all the body horror angles in Beast Wars are. Just seeing Megatron laying there in pieces with wires sticking out, that really disturbed me.
I think it certainly would disturb me if I were to think of it in human terms. But hey, man, I'm a frickin' Philadelphian. Any robot comes near me, it better be prepared to get torn apart.
Oh, that's right. From Hitchbot, right? Is that who you're talking about?
I am talking about Hitchbot. Listeners, look up the story of Hitchbot, a hitchhiking robot who wasn't really a robot, but did get taken apart in Philadelphia. And Phil and I, in a previous creative collaboration, made an episode of our web series, West Phillians, all about what robots better look out for when they come messing around the Philly streets.
Yeah, that's right. Philly's the birthplace of American independence from both the British and robots.
Yeah. If this were a visual medium, I would do that thing where you like jerk your upper body forward to like make somebody startle.
Like we're about to get into a breakdance battle or something.
Yeah. Or do that thing where I bump my shoulder into your shoulder. It's like, whoa, no, man, he bumped his shoulder into that other guy's shoulder. Oh, it's on now.
It's also a very Philadelphian thing to assume that happens everywhere else. And it turns out everywhere else, people just act like sane people. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So, in Philadelphians, we call it Philly. Now that you're in Auckland, what do they call residents of Auckland? Is there a slang term or an official term?
I don't think I've heard one yet. It might just be like Aucklanders. But offhand, I don't believe I've heard one. I have learned that apparently it's frowned upon here to throw a battery at somebody when you're mildly annoyed by them.
How bizarre.
I know. I mean, I knew there would be things for me to get used to moving here, but how am I supposed to express my feelings if I can't throw a battery at somebody?
I mean, how are you even supposed to get somebody's attention?
Yeah. Well, they do still mostly understand what yo means.
Yo. Okay, so anyway, we were talking about Beast Wars.
Yeah. Scorponok is upset that Megatron is taken out. Tarantulas just cackles as usual. As soon as Terrorsaur beats Megatron, he immediately starts talking like Megatron. Megatron is scrap. Yes. I thought that was funny.
Yeah, he got some real erotic jollies out of all of this.
Yeah. But then basically Terrorsaur starts going into withdrawal. So has to go back to the floating mountain. Cheetor is watching all this, and he has learned to hang back, do recon, and then report, rather than just charging in on his own.
Oh, that's a very good observation. I missed that. Good job by you.
Thank you. Well, so it's funny. He's learned the lesson from 2 episodes ago, the web, but not learned his lesson from Equal Measures.
So there's a 2-episode buffer. It takes 2 episodes for them to learn a lesson. Is that what we're taking away from this?
I think so. Wait, hold on. I'm wrong. Equal Measures was 2 episodes ago. The web was 3 episodes ago.
Oh, so it's 3.
Yes. So it takes 3 episodes to learn a lesson. You will repeat the same mistake the next week, but then a couple weeks after that, you'll finally have internalized things.
I think I'm prepared to add this to Beast Wars bingo.
Somebody learning a lesson that they actually already learned 3 weeks ago.
Or it takes 3 episodes for them to put into practice whatever the moral of this episode was.
Yeah, and we can see. And, they are robots. It probably takes time to download their software updates and such.
Yeah, they got to clear out some of the old memory and get the new firmware update. And the reason it takes so long is because every time they see the window pop up in their eyes, they just click defer over and over again.
Yeah, remind me tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I would do if I were a Maximal.
Yeah. Although, with all of their check-ins and one-on-ones, then you've got to each week make an excuse to your boss for why you haven't gotten around to installing that update yet. So how's it going with the update? We got attacked by the Predacons and, installing that the new laser pulse radar. Like, okay, all right, yeah. Do you think this week you'll be able to install that update? Oh, yeah, definitely will.
Not that you've had to conduct one-on-ones. or they're like, oh yeah, I was outside and I got the pop-up, but I had to transform into beast mode, and you know how that is.
Yeah, I was, we didn't, the energon interference here, I wasn't getting the Wi-Fi signal from our base. So, and then by the time I got to the base, we had other stuff going on. Yeah, and hey, I've been on both sides of that conversation, right? in seconds and one.
But I'm still a team player. Still a team player.
Oh yeah, for sure. Cheetor gets back to the base. We see Rat Trap playing holographic poker, something along those lines. And like any gamer, he wanted to keep going until he won. It's never like, fine, I'm not doing well in Elden Ring. I'll go to bed and come back refreshed tomorrow. It's instead, I'm not going to go to bed until I beat this fucker.
Yeah. Hey, Ship, you're not the boss of me. You're just the home of me. So I have a couple of observations from this one scene. First of all, when Cheetor comes in and he's like kind of breathlessly blurting out everything that he saw, Optimus says something like, you're not making sense, or you're babbling, better transform into robot mode.
Yeah.
And then he transforms into robot mode, and it appears like he can more easily speak. Are there personality differences between their beast modes and robot modes? Is this implying something like that?
Well, there's a later episode where they're forced to remain in beast mode for a long time, and it does start to mess with them for a little while. But in this case, I assumed it was more something like that even though their beast modes aren't truly organic, they do mimic certain organic processes. And maybe when they're in beast mode, they do have to like use oxygen, and it helps facilitate some kind of energy exchange in their body or something. And thus, then transforming into robot mode, you would no longer be short of breath or something like that, maybe?
I wasn't prepared for that to check out, but I think that does. I'll buy that as my working assumption going forward, and then maybe we can see if that happens in other episodes.
Yeah.
So when they bring up the map, because they want Cheetor to show them where the island was, they very briefly show a picture of the planet, and you can clearly see Western Africa. And they're panning west. And then Cheetor points to where he saw the island. And based on the globe, even though they don't show North America, based on where he's pointing, he would be pointing at North America.
Yeah. I mean, if this were Earth, which we know it's not because there's 2 moons. Earth doesn't have 2 moons. Maybe the land masses look identical, but couldn't possibly be Earth.
Yeah.
Too many moons.
That's true. Too many moons.
In this scene, I thought it was funny when Rhinox says, oh, if there's a sufficient concentration of unstable energon, it could lift a mountain off the ground. But as we were talking about earlier, every mountain on this show is completely filled with energon. So why isn't just every mountain floating?
That's a good question. Do you think Scorponok was practicing like his missiles hitting mountains, and then he hit the bottom of his practice mountain enough that it just took off?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Yes. And maybe it's like a balloon filled with helium. It will float into the sky unless you have it anchored down. And so it could lift an entire mountain, assuming that the bottom of the mountain isn't anchored to the earth. All right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, and Scorponok stays out of the way in this episode, so you know he's trying to, doesn't want to catch any strays. He's trying to keep a low profile.
Yeah. So after all the Maximals are briefed about the situation, Optimus tells Rat Trap to meet him in 5 cycles to begin the mission to destroy the mountain. So given the urgency of the mission, I'm assuming a cycle must be analogous to like a minute or something. But to me, it sounds more like it would describe planetary rotation. But maybe Cybertron just rotates super fast and it actually rotates once a minute.
Do they just say days?
I can't remember if they say days. They did reference a month in the web, I think it was. Yeah. Or maybe a cycle refers to like some kind of computational cycle or something. And it would make sense that as robots, they would base a lot of their measurements of time over how quickly a robotic circuitry can do X, Y, or Z.
That's a good point. They come up with their alternative units of time that are less than a day, but they use the regular English units of time bigger than that. You would think they would change it narratively to be like, it's been a mega month since we had that last attack, and I'll get you in a couple of digidays.
Yeah, well, I do think, and I don't know for sure that this is true, but I feel like I have vague recollections of them in later episodes referring to like mega cycles and something like that. So maybe it is, again, just that they're still fine-tuning the specific sci-fi lingo of the show.
Okay.
Here's something that I found was interesting. We go back to Terrorsaur. He's back to the mountain. I didn't notice this the first time Terrorsaur was zapping himself to get the power. But here, where he's recharging himself, he blinks invisible a couple times, which I'm guessing is maybe just meant to evoke in a cartoon when somebody gets electrocuted, you see their skeleton or something.
Whoa, I didn't notice that. That's really interesting. Maybe it forms an electrical field around his body where light is bent straight through. That's what I would tell you if I were a writer who just put a big plot hole in there trying to cover my ass.
Well, it's not a plot hole because it's not like any other parts of the episode depend on Terrorsaur not blinking invisible while he's doing that recharge or something. So he's regaining the power. Optimus flies Rat Trap up there. It was funny to me that Rat Trap had to specifically pack explosives for this mission, because given how explosive unstable energon is, it seems like Optimus could have just flown like above the mountain and shot at it, and then it would have blown up. It seems to me like you didn't actually need a demolition expert.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost as if he didn't believe if you shot a missile randomly in the direction of a mountain full of energon that, you know, all you would have to do is yell, "The missiles!" And then you turn and then the whole thing blows up. It's like that wasn't his working assumption. Why?
I don't know. I guess Optimus really wanted to make sure the job got done right. Then we once again sort of are pairing up Tarantulas and Rat Trap. We're making them foils for each other because they then fight on the mountain. I have it written down here. Tarantula surprises Rat Trap on the mountain and tries to get his suck on.
Yeah, so that's so funny. So I thought of that too. Like they're foils for each other. That's being driven home again. And hey, can Apetimus butt in for a little bit right here?
Oh, yeah, Apetimus, what's up? Oh, everybody, this is Apetimus Prime, friend of the show, I guess we could say.
Ooh, I'm Optimus Prime, brother. Look at all of this prime digital chuck roast just hanging off of here. You're gonna have to register these guns as two guns. But there are two guns that come out of my back. But anyway, I just wanted to say, brother, you know that Tarantulas? I still get some real rapey vibes from that one.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't get into many physical fights, but anytime I ever have, my go-to option has not been trying to bite and suck on my opponent. So, just going to put that out there. Listeners can draw their own conclusions.
Let's draw some conclusions that draw him away from these episodes, because yeesh.
Yeah. Although, listen, Apetimus, I'm not trying to put you on blast here, but given your own well-documented love of bananas, I would tend to assume that, you know, somebody indulging in putting their mouth on a banana-shaped object would be par for the course for you.
Oh, geez, brother. I like one thing in the whole world, and don't take that away from me, brother. Don't take that away from me, Optimus.
All right, you're right. You know what? How about this? After the show, I'll make it up to you. I'll make you some banana apes.
Yeah. Ooh, that sounds really good.
Yeah, get some banana Nutella up in there, maybe.
I do want to make one Apetimus point later, and we alluded to this already, which is that Optimus goes against type a little bit. He does something a little bit crazy in this episode.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And, you know, I envisioned that Apetimus was watching the episode with some popcorn. He's like,
all right, now we're talking. Let's get wild and crazy. Yeah, here's the real Aptimus. I knew we were related. Go get that shit, son. Go get that.
So we were talking about Base Force. Rat Trap beats Tarantulas by throwing mud on his eyes, and Tarantulas just, rather than stopping to wipe the mud off his eyes, he just runs off the mountain. Like, all right, I thought he was the smart one, but I guess he's also the crazy one.
Yeah, he would have been bailed out if, he was able to walk on walls or something like that. That's a shame that his beast mode doesn't allow for that.
Yeah. As Rat Trap is fighting him, he says, stick it in your command module. So do you think most robots' command modules are in their butts?
Well, I mean, your signature has to be pretty socially aware to be able to, stay closed that whole time very effectively, no matter what the social situation is. You would think that would demand its own command module.
Okay. That makes sense.
Okay, so if you were going to make this joke, what tech term for a rectum would you have used?
Like, if it were regular Transformers, I would say, stick it in your exhaust pipe would work great. Maybe stick it in your output port or something, maybe.
I think I would have gone with stick this in your USB A-hole.
Now that joke would have been ahead of its time in 1996.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They didn't have... USB existed in 1996, right?
Maybe. I had not heard of it. I think by then we were still using... Was it zip drives? Was that like a bigger, beefier floppy disk?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, man, that takes me back. Zip drives?
Yeah. I never used one myself, but I remember we had one in the centralizer office.
That's right. And they were quite effective at transporting what we would consider today to be a very tiny amount of data.
Yes. Listeners, the centralizer is the student newspaper from Central High School of Philadelphia. Where Phil and I went, we were both on the editorial staff. Our algebra teacher once referred to us as journalists, but we misheard him and thought that he called us jerkheads.
Yeah, and that was a real shame because we remain jerkheads to this day.
Yes. It was a defining moment in our young lives, I would say.
And now we're going to have to do a podcast called Jerkheads.
When we run out of Beast Wars episodes, we can just transition the podcast to being called. So we were jerkheads back then, and we're still jerkheads now.
There's a lot of jerkhead material out there.
Yeah, for sure. So anyway, Rat Trap's explosive devices work. They start blowing up all the energon. Optimus can't fly because he's been damaged by fighting Terrorsaur. So he and Rat Trap, as you said, just have to crazily jump off the mountain. We get another slow motion shot of someone jumping away from an explosion.
Bingo.
And yes, Rat Trap did point out that that was crazy. But maybe Apetimus would say, just crazy enough to work.
But how could they survive that fall?
I mean, it's a cartoon. I mean, because, realistically, even if Optimus has strong robot arms that can grab onto a branch of a tree as they pass by it, you'd think that their weight and their momentum would be such that it would still snap the branch. But maybe what happened was they did that and they snapped 13 branches on the way down. And then finally, each branch they snapped slowed their momentum a little bit. And then finally, this was the 14th branch and it worked all right.
Okay, I'll buy that. I do want to make one observation about Optimus Primal in this sequence. Even though it feels like it goes a little against type to be a little reckless jumping out of the island, I thought it was brave of him to lead Terrorsaur away from Rat Trap so that Rat Trap could set the charges.
Yeah. Optimus is the best.
It's not bad. Just don't say that within an earshot of Apetimus.
Oh, no. Apetimus is also the best. Yeah, I think he heard that and then turned around and is leaving. So then Terrorsaur limps back to the Predacon base where Megatron is repaired. And presumably he kicks Terrorsaur's ass many times.
Yeah, Terrorsaur turns white, as I probably would have in that situation.
Yeah. Like we talked about, this does seem to... Terrorsaur's reaction to the energon seems somewhat analogous to somebody using drugs. Although I don't think they were actually trying to really do an anti-drug message episode. It's just a useful point of comparison.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they just happen to have that similarity. A couple of wrap-up points. Okay. So on the B-Scores bingo front, we had a check mark for jumping away from an explosion.
Yeah.
which Optimus and Rat Trap do. We did not have anybody hanging precariously from a great height or about to fall into lava or energon or something like that, which real missed opportunity.
Yeah. You can't get higher than a floating mountain.
Yeah, I mean, it's a long way down. Maximize versus terrorize. How many times do you think maximize was said, and how many times do you think terrorize was said?
I'm going to guess maximize 5, terrorize 6.
Well, you're right in that terrorize was said more times than maximize.
Okay.
And terrorize was said one more time than maximize. Terrorize was said 3 times and maximize was said 2.
Yeah, I remembered the show just always throwing around maximize and terrorize, but I guess they were a little judicious with it.
Yeah, I guess it's because they stick out because it's so unnecessary. Anytime they ever say maximize or terrorize, it feels like a lot more.
Yeah, and it's not like in the original Transformers cartoon. They didn't have to say a command word to transform, and I never watched that thinking, like, why are they just able to transform without saying a special word? It very much seems like, all right, Hasbro or somebody said, yeah, give them each a thing to say, and we can maybe put that on the toy box or something.
I buy that.
So the lesson, kids, don't do energon.
Just say no.
Yeah, just say no to mountains full of unstable energon. So thank you for listening. I've been Andy Hunter.
I've been Phil Thomas.
And now we have talked about Beast Wars.